right, well, let's move on from a player who seems to have lost the confidence to another player who's seemingly growing that confidence back that he had in his rookie year. That being Bub Carrington. He dropped 15 points in this game. Troy, what did you think of Bub's performance?
Man, I really with Bub Carrington. If I shout out to Dean Oliver, who used to actually work in the front office for the Wizards doing analytics, but he posted something from ESPN Analytics, and some of Bub Carrington's stats on there are very interesting. He's played in 107 total NBA games, and only 19 of them he's had a net positive of his point rating for the ESPN Analytics. That's not a very good percentage. But what is very encouraging is the fact that 3 of those games have come in the last 4 games that he's played. So, we're talking about a guy who, he really has struggled over the majority of his NBA career of just coming out and having a positive impact on the game. But if you look at, his last 2 weeks of basketball, I think that that's a very encouraging sign of the fact that, like I said, like 3 of his best games, 3 of his positive net rating games have come in the last 2 weeks. So, it's definitely great for the trajectory and the trend of where I see his game going. And so, I think that the Wizards fans really need to have a lot of patience with Bub Carrington and, kind of allow this thing to play out because he is still very young. And, there are some tools there with him.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits with him being on a roster that's constructed like this, right? Is, he wasn't looking particularly great through the first 20 games of this season, but with a team that isn't trying to win, their goal is to try to develop. It meant that he was getting a lot of minutes to try to develop, to try to figure it out. And it really has felt like over the last 2 weeks, it's clicked for him in a way that it really hadn't in the past. But Pooh, let me ask you this. What do you think of how the fan base in general was viewing Bub at the start of the season?
It was disappointing because when you're talking about a 19-year-old player that only spent 1 year in school, combo guard, got to play the way he played, coming out of college last year, then being asked to become a floor general when he's not a floor general naturally, there was going to be some struggle. And as we're seeing in the past 2 weeks, we're getting aggressive Bub Carrington. I'm going to look to score, and then I'll look to set up. And that's how he needs to play. Like every point guard isn't, I'm going to come out and I'm going to get 10 assists before I think about scoring. He needs to think about scoring to open up the assist. And I think people make too much of him not getting to the rim. Yes, he needs to work on that, and that's going to come with added strength and just working on getting shots around the basket, but in traffic. But I think for Bub, the key for him is not necessarily getting to the rim, but getting to his mid game. That's his layup right now, is his midi. And when he gets to the midi and then works back out to his improved 3-point shot, it opens up so much of the floor for him. And even just getting to the midi is enough of breaking the defense down to make them have to react, to open up them other pockets, whether that's somebody rolling to the rim, Bilal, or somebody spraying out to the 3 in Keyshawn or Champagny or Trey Johnson. So I was disappointed in the conversation surrounding Bub. Like we all didn't know. They're still tanking. They're still developing. But I'm happy for Bub that he's finally starting to look like the player we saw last year. And he's literally looking like he's playing the game versus thinking the game while he's trying to play it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we have to acknowledge it, the elephant in the room. I think that a lot of the conversation around Bub Carrington on Wizards Twitter has to do with the fact that he was traded for Denny Avdia. And so it's almost like the Derek Queen trade for the Pelicans. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you have this thing attached to you, like Bub Carrington, no matter what he does throughout his NBA career, like he's gonna have to wear that jacket of I was traded for Denny Avdia. And so, that may be unfair, because if you start to look at and compare, Bub Carrington, his second year data to looking up to Denny Avdia's second year data, then you would be like, oh man, like there's still, hope and a chance for him to, continue to develop. But I think the biggest thing, like I said, like if he wasn't traded for Denny Avdia, then I feel like his career will be able to stand alone, and we would judge it completely differently. But because, like I said, he's always going to be attached to the Wizards giving up Denny Avdia, and we're going to go through some All Star voting later, and right now, like Denny Avdia probably is an All Star starter, and so that looks bad from the Wizards front office standpoint, but it's nothing to be done about that now. The only thing that Wizards have to focus on is making sure that they continue to develop Bub. And, Pooh, like you said, like I love the fact that like he's been more decisive and getting to his mid-range. And so a lot of people keep talking about him having to get to the rim, but I really think he just needs to work on making sure his handle is tight and that whatever he does, he's just decisive with it. Like, what I'm saying? Just come out, move the basketball, pull up for a jumper, or try to set up a teammate. Like, I feel like early on in the season, like he was having a lot of struggles, a lot of turnovers because he just didn't know what to do with the basketball, or he was just coming off a screen and not really making a decisive play. And so, yeah, I think that when he just kind of puts his head down, keeps his dribble tight, and gets to something, gets to a pull-up, gets to a floater, like I feel like that is where his game really flows best.
Well, I also think, too, when he starts to lean into his strengths, it will then allow him to grow even further as that playmaker, right? I know, Pooh, you were saying they're trying to fit him in this role as being the floor general for this team, and it really hasn't been working for him, right? Where they've been trying to get him to attack the rim, they've been trying to get him to find these spaces, but even in spite of that, even like we're saying he wasn't particularly growing or wasn't really successful in that, but he still has the highest assist percentage of any player on the team. He also has the most assists of his entire draft class this season. So he wasn't even playing to his strengths, and he was a pretty good playmaker. Now you have to imagine when he starts to get in his groove, when he actually is looking for the shots that he can hit, and they actually start to fall. That's when, Pooh, as he said, those lanes are going to start to open up for him more, and he's going to actually convert a little bit more assists, and the turnovers aren't going to be coming as frequently for him. And so to see him actually have this stretch of games where it feels like it's actually coming together for him a little bit better has been very promising to see. But Troy, I have to ask, we're saying that the fans were a little quick to jump off the train for him. How do you think that fans should be approaching any of these young players in the next coming months?
Well, I mean, hashtag so Wizards. We have to be cautiously optimistic for all of these young players because, I really feel like the Wizards are in a mode where, they aren't getting these blue chip prospects where, like players are coming in with all around well-rounded games and they're just going to be proficient at so many different things. Like the Wizards are really going to have to, as a front office, as a team, going to have to roll their sleeves up and put in the work to try to develop these guys. And so, like, when you look at guys who have, like, for the Wizards, young guys, like, who have very clear weaknesses and very clear strengths. And so the object is to, try to accentuate what they do well, but also, like, raise the floor for the weaknesses. So that means Bilal Coulibaly for his jump shot, Bub Carrington helping him, try to finish around the rim, Keyshawn George helping him stop fouling. Like, they have to really, work on the weaknesses for these young players. And, that is, to me, just as important. Though the development and growth of the young players is way more important than what the win-loss record is at this point.
All right, and Pooh, let me just ask you this final one. Where is your optimism at right now for this young core?
My optimism is high. I love this young core. I think it's a lot of pieces and a lot of tools here, and you're starting to see. I think the competition starts to separate who's who and what's what. And as we've seen this year, with Alex Sarr taking the big leap, just unfortunately he came into the season a little nicked up, and he's been nicked up. And then Keyshawn George, of course, he's almost like if Alex Sarr is 1A for the young guns, Keyshawn George is 1B now. And I'm very highly optimistic, and I think whenever they get that player, be it a young player or a veteran, whenever they get that player, the competition that's being bred, the development that's being had with this young group, I think is going to position them to be great. Either they're going to be great co-stars or they're going to be great what is it, supporting cast for when they do get that person that's going to have all of the gravity. And I think that's the thing that fans have to understand. We do not have that one person that is the gravity. We don't have the grab that pulls people to the left, to the right, to one side of the court, to the other. We don't have that player yet. And when you don't have that player, you can on defense can play you a whole different way versus when you have that gravitational pull of a player. So yeah, I'm like I said, I'm high. I'm high on these guys. I'm still high on them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you just said, Pooh, because like the Wizards, they have like if we're gonna be honest, like they don't have that star player who's gonna pull the gravity of the court and make everybody else's job easier. And like we have a lot of role players, but we need these players to be stars in their roles. But like the thing is, like when we ever do get that blue chip player to come in here, then everybody's role is going to look different. Can you like just imagine like a guy like Bilal Coulibaly if he was playing with a guy like Shea? Like if you played with a guy who had that much gravity, like he probably would get 120 dunks a year, like just off of cutting off a Shea. And so I think that once the Wizards are able to, with fingers crossed, get that star player to come in, whether that be through free agency or trade or getting lucky in the draft. I think that everybody's role will look different than what it looks like right now.
Well, as Damo said on our midweek show, the goal for all of us right now is to have patience